Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to What's Happening. We have a very exciting episode today. My name is Chloe Cooley, and thank you all so much for being here. Here with me today, I have JSU's president, Dr. Don Killingsworth. Dr. Killingsworth, thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, Chloe. I'm glad to be here.
Yep, I know it's very early, like we've been discussing. We're both busy, got a long day ahead of us, but it's going to be a good show today.
It will be. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from, just in case they don't know?
Sure. Well, so let's see. Now I've been at the university a little over 20 years, but originally born in Phoenix City area, and then grew up in the Alexander City area. Graduated from Benjamin Russell High School down in Alex City. Came to JSU in 1994. And joined several organizations. Later on in my undergraduate career, I got involved in the Student Government Association. Later, I had 3 offices in the SGA. Back then, it was the Chief Justice, the Controller, and then eventually the SGA President. And graduated in 1999 with a degree in geography, minored in history. Went straight into my master's program here and got a master's in counseling. And after that, went to work. And I had a job right out of my master's. It was with ACT, the test. I had no issue, or I did not write any of the test questions, so don't get mad at me. I was traveling, trying to help schools and colleges with a new program they had. It was career development, so I traveled around helping schools learn to use that, and which helped students figure out what they wanted to do in their careers. Stayed there a year and a half. Of course, that was during 9/11 and a lot of travel going on, so it kind of changed the scope of the job when I first entered it to what it turned into be. And JSU had a job open in 2002, and I came back and have had various roles throughout since that time. But that's a little snippet. Maybe there's something in there you want to dive into more, but that's just where I started in high school and then how I ended up at JSU.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you studied geography and wound up going to work for ACT. That's not the path I would have thought.
Well, no, it's not your traditional path, but the master's was the counseling portion of, and I knew once I finished my undergraduate work that I wanted to go into that type of counseling. So it's the path I chosen for my undergraduate, but by the end of my undergraduate, I knew I was where I was headed for my graduate work.
Yeah, well, it's good that you knew all of that and knew what
I enjoyed the geography part. It was mostly climatological geography, and which is study of the climates, and Dr. Ted Klimachevsky, who taught here for many years, taught me many things, tried to get me to go into meteorology. I don't know if I could be a weatherman.
I could see you being a weatherman, honestly.
Well, thank you. I guess he could too. That's why he wanted me to try it. But no, I had chosen a different path by that point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's so funny. I took geography as my science because everybody has to have a science course, and I kind of hated it. In all honesty, it was not for me. I'm not a science person.
Right. That was the world geography, maybe.
Or
the physical geography.
Physical geography. Yeah.
Yes, I could understand that. It was not what
I thought it would be, because when I hear geography, I think of where countries are on a map.
Right.
I did not think I'm going to be studying soil samples from different places.
But it's so interesting, though, when you get into it, and those classes they're the intro versions of what you can look forward to down the road. But once you get into the major courses in geography, they have some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
they're flying drones over there now. They're a lot of mapping. Geographic information systems is a new hot major, so it's gotten a lot more technological than it was when I was going through now.
Yeah, I'm sure. So let's talk about your childhood. When you were a little kid, and somebody said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" What would you have said?
Well, I think I had changed my vision and wants several times when I was a child. You always wanted to be superheroes and stuff like that, but I wanted to play sports, a variety of sports. Never was really good at any of them. I could play. That was about it. So really, I started to focus a little more when I got to college. But and I cannot remember a certain work that I wanted. I said I want to do this, and I want to go do that. I enjoyed business. We had some high school clubs that I was a part of, and I enjoyed that aspect. And my first major was business. And then I ended up changing and venturing out and seeing more what was available, especially at college. But I can't lock in on what maybe I'm just getting too old to remember back that far, but what I wanted to be when I grew up. But it was the typical childhood dreams, I assure you.
Yeah, that's so funny. So I'm interested to hear. So I used to work for the governor in Montgomery, and when I was there, everybody would say, "Where do you go to school?" And I would say JSU, and everyone would say, "Oh, Don Killingsworth." Everybody knew you from your time in Montgomery. So I'm interested to hear how you transitioned from working for ACT to working in Montgomery.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that you don't think is a logical step. So when I came back to JSU, I was hired as the coordinator of academic advisement. I helped students who were suspended and dismissed get back on a path to enrolling at JSU and making sure they had a plan to be successful. Working with the orientation team, mostly the faculty advisors with the orientation team, training them. And I did that for several years until my predecessor in the government relations area, his name was Jack Hopper. The cafeteria is named after him. Came up to me and said, "Hey, I remember when you were SGA president and you worked down in Montgomery some with a group called the Higher Education Partnership, which we're still members of. Or would you be interested in doing what I'm doing when I get ready to retire," which was fairly close. I said, "Absolutely." So he brought me into a meeting with then the president, Dr. Meehan. And they both talked to me about what it would be and so forth. And, of course, I was 100% interested. So I moved over into that role. Shortly after that, Mr. Hopper ended up getting sick and passing away. So I was thrust into the role a little faster than I had anticipated. But doing so allowed me to meet so many great people, but be able to represent the institution that I love and the policy making and the funding aspect of the state government arm. Later on, I took up the Washington aspect of the government relations side, but most of my time was spent down in Montgomery and establishing those friendships and relationships that I still count on today. And I can talk about that further as you're ready. But so that was the transition of how I started where I was in academic advisement and then moving over to the government relations side. We did not have a government relations office at the university. Mr. Hopper was actually at that time was vice president of advancement, and he did both at fundraising and government relations. But the way that job and had started to change in the state, and every university had one. Then Dr. Meehan thought it was time to go ahead and establish, so I became the director of government relations, which is a one-man office.
Yeah, that's so funny, especially how things have changed now with Leah. We love Leah doing government relations.
Yes, and I had that title and role that Leah Cawthon takes up now, and I could not have found a better person to hand that off to. And Leah was a 2003 graduate of the institution, and she went back to work in Montgomery, mostly in the agricultural and the lobbying constituent services for agriculture, and so she knew Montgomery. She knew who not the agriculture side, but not the education side. But she has transitioned and picked up the education side quickly, and has exceeded all expectations. And she is doing extremely well.
She is doing a great job. I know she's gonna help me find a job one day, hopefully.
I think you can find that on your own, but we're here to help you because you're a star.
Thank you so much. So I'm curious, so since you built those connections in Montgomery, and clearly people still know you, and you still have those connections, what was kind of stopping you from being a politician in Montgomery?
Well, nothing. Work. It's several years through that you could not do both. The legislature said if you're going to work for a state institution, higher ed, 2-year or 4-year, you cannot be a legislator as well. Although I'm not saying that won't happen down the road. Politics always interests me, so there is hopefully a path, but I'm happy what I'm doing right now. But I enjoyed helping the legislators do what they were able to do and accomplish their goals and missions. The technical term, lobbyists, I don't think we were lobbyists. We were liaisons to help, especially from institution side. Now, there are contract lobbyists, and that's what they do. That's what they get paid to do. My job was to relay information from JSU to Montgomery and vice versa. So if legislators had an issue or constituent problem, like one of their constituents in their district had an issue with JSU, mostly housing, mostly classes or something, that was common, the common two, I could get them in touch or take that issue back to campus and see if I cannot help them solve whatever the problem might be. And that's where a lot of those relationships were formed. But, I enjoyed helping them accomplish their goals, and then bill writing and resolution writing and some of that stuff, the technical aspects of when laws are actually made or written and then put into the bill passing process. And I understand the political process, and sometimes it's hard to understand. It's fascinating, and when you're down there as long as I was, then you know what's happening, but on the surface, but what's happening behind, because the behind stuff is where everything gets taken care of. Not to say they're not out front with everything, but all the discussions are happening over here to the side, and people are standing up talking on the microphones, but while everything's being discussed. So, and the stories are too numerous of times that I was down in Montgomery, and good and bad. There were some tough issues that came up in Montgomery while I was down there. That mostly financial. The budgets were tough during those years until we got into a more stable footing in the state and how we budgeted. But yeah, all that part was fascinating, and you can tell I can go off into the weeds on that and start rambling, but it was a fun time, and it changed. It constantly changed. Not only did the legislators change, I was there, let's see, in the mid-2000s, and then in 2010, the House and Senate changed over. So the Democrats were in control, and then in 2010, all of a sudden, the Republicans were in control. So transitioning from one group of leadership to another who do you go to now? And it was not just a simple transition. There, for a few years, the Senate, which is made up of 35 members, were an 18-17 split. So, one vote either way, kind of similar to what's happening in Washington with the 50-50 split. So everything was negotiated, but when 2010 happened, the Republicans went into supermajorities, and no one really knew how to operate because now they had the votes to do whatever they wanted. So your tactics changed and how you approach things. I didn't mean to get into basics of lobbying. And I taught a class here on lobbying a couple years ago, a few years ago now, before I was president. And I was trying to, when the first day of class, you go in and you a group of students there, and I said, well, tell me your picture of what you think lobbying might be. And most of them were showing parties or whining and dining. And I said, okay, that's the public perception of what it might be. But let me show you what reality. I showed them a 100-page bill that you had to read and highlight and pick out parts that could negatively affect you. I showed a picture of sitting in committee meetings of drawn out just rhetoric of it could matter, it could not. You're just sitting there and you're trying not to go to sleep because it's so boring. So that's real lobbying. The fancy stuff that you see on TV is not real lobbying, although that does occur, don't get me wrong. But everything that takes place in Montgomery is that the boring stuff, because where the boring stuff, when it gets into something could be said that could change everything. So you have to still be a part of that.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to ramble, I will say, but I can definitely agree with that. And from my experience in the governor's office, a lot of it is very boring and very tedious, but the boring stuff is important. You can't just overlook it, because it's like you said, a little thing could have a really big impact.
And usually the boring stuff is what makes us work. It's the monotonous projects, the constant appointments, the letters that go out. I can't even imagine what the governor gets. I know what I get, and hers is 20, 30 times more than I can ever imagine. So it's the constant work that goes out. So a lot of the flashy stuff everybody sees, but it's the old adage, or the duck swimming. It looks calm going on top, but underwater the feet are just pedaling, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to that
Yes.
a lot, being
Yes.
as busy as you are and having so much going on. So how did you transfer from government relations to becoming president?
Well, during that time while I was in government relations, I finished my doctoral work at the University of Alabama and graduated, and it was all, I had made it known that I wanted to be a college president, whether 2-year or 4-year. I wanted to keep moving up in leadership, and I had chosen the non-academic side to go more on the external affairs side of university work, and the opportunity came up at a certain point where the trustees were changing directions of where they wanted to go, and they needed someone to step in and kind of point the ship in the right direction and hold it together. So I stepped in that role as acting president. I was named acting president in October of 2019. So we were rolling along, and after a few months into the role, of course, we know March of 2020 is when COVID landed on us, and from March of 2020 to June of 2020, I would say that was a great audition and a job interview. Now the trustees will say they were looking as soon as they named me acting in October until June, so 6 months of kind of a job interview, or a little more. But once June got here, they just took the acting off, and before that I had met with the trustees and told them, because I said I was interested, and they said, well, tell us what you would like to do. And I went through my presentation of where I saw the university going and what we could do, and from history to where we're going in the future, and they liked it, and they said everything's running great right now, so let's just take the acting off, and you can have it, go get him. And that's what they told me to do, and that's what we've been doing ever since.
Yeah.
But I have been wanting to be university president for a long time. That was from that time. And I mentioned it earlier, when I graduated from my undergraduate and started that role of counseling, it was higher education counseling. So I knew I wanted to work in higher education, and working so close with then Dr. Meehan. I was the SGA president when he was transitioning in to be the president. I started keeping my eye on the job and what it got, what the details of the job were, and being able to help change lives, and and that's what we do. Was more attractive as I kept going through. So everything I did, pretty much from my SGA president years to being named president was learning to be a president until you get to the job, and then you're like, well, I didn't learn this. So there's a lot more to it. But yes, I have been working towards that goal for quite some time. I always wanted to be president at JSU. I didn't know if I would ever get the chance to be president of JSU. I was willing to go somewhere else to be president, but fortunately, I was able to be president of my alma mater.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job, honestly.
Well, thank you. The jury's out sometimes. I say we make mistakes and we learn from those mistakes, but I'm willing to try something new all the time if it's going to make the university better and a better opportunity for our students as well. So we're willing to try new things, and we have. We've got a lot going on, but we'll get into those shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot going on campus for sure. So I'm curious, did you talk to a lot of former presidents and kind of get their experience and try to learn? Like you said, you worked with Dr. Meehan. Did you, once you became president, like start calling up the other presidents and being like, hey, tell me what you got here?
Yeah. Yes. I could not go back in history for the institution because Dr. Meehan was the only living besides my predecessor. And I did reach out to current presidents in the state who I had worked with in my former job. In government relations, you work with all universities quite closely, and they all had one of me. So every university had a government relations person, and the presidents are constantly down in Montgomery. So you get to interact with presidents quite frequently in my former role. So I knew going in when I was named, I called some of my friends. Dr. Ken Tucker at the University of West Alabama has been great to me. Dr. Ken Kitts up at the University of North Alabama has been great to me. Dr. Jack Hawkins is always willing to offer advice. Of course, he's the longest serving public college president in the United States. He was appointed back in Troy in 1989, and he's still president, our chancellor. So I got to call upon those friends and say, hey, by the way, any advice is helpful. Although their institutions are every institution is different. They offered some helpful advice of what to do and try what not to do. And but they said, you've got it. You've been trained for this. Just if you make mistakes, just learn from them and go forward. As long as you keep the students at the center of decisions, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice to have. I can't imagine, like, your job. I really cannot, because you're so busy all the time. Even just trying to, like, get you on the show, it was like trying to herd cats over here, because you're just so busy. I just can't imagine all the things that you have to do. And
I'm sorry about that. It's where we are right now. So let's talk about right now and why it is so busy. Next week, we have our visit from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Council on Colleges and SAC-CSC, and they come once every 10 years, and it is next week.
Yep.
So we have to get through that, and we've been preparing for that. The provost, the vice provost, and Kim Preston in accreditation under the provost, they've been working extremely hard on this for at least 2 years. So it's all come to a head this spring. So it seems like, normally the calendar is kind of busy, but this is a little, compacted in several ways because we have so much to do, so much to prepare for, because without that accreditation, we don't exist. And we want to make a good showing because this is peer reviewed. So these are our colleagues from all over the South that come in that represent their institutions, but represent SAC-CSC. And we've agreed to guidelines, and they're just checking to see if we are doing what we say we're supposed to be doing. So the schedule has been a little tight this spring, but there's just a lot going on in general. The university is a complex organization. And you always try to get to various meetings, but I have meetings, 7 1-hour meetings all day, and then you work into the evening, and then you do it all over again, and that's fine. That's part of it, and that's what I signed up for. Not that I have to be a part of every one of those meetings, and we have divisional vice presidents, and they have their meetings, and it kind of trickles down after that. But I apologize, the schedule was so busy, but we tried to work everything in as we can, and I told her to make sure my assistant, to get this on the schedule, and I'm glad we were able to do it.
Yeah, me too. It's okay because I understand, because I work for Christy Shelton, the provost, and so I know the stress of preparing for SACs. We've already planned to like order a cake the day that they leave, because we're just like, it's been so hectic in that office, so I understand completely.
She has earned her vacation, and thankfully, right after SACs leaves is spring break.
Yes.
So everyone has deserved the time off, and I've asked that people do not show up to campus, because some will try to come in and kind of tidy things up from the visit, and it's not necessary. It'll be there when we get back. So please take time off, because they have spent a while, and working in that office, that if there's any office that's busier than mine, it's probably the provost office.
Yeah, she never takes a break. She needs to. She probably won't even take a break on spring break, I'm sure.
Well, if she's listening, you need a break, Dr. Shelton. Take a break.
I know, we always tell her, but she's like you, always got something coming up.
Well,
so
you want to be a part of everything. Like, there's so many different this time of year in the spring recitals. I think Chamber Winds was last night, the show choir, the gospel choir. All these art programs and music programs that you want to go try to see, we just can't get to all of them. So sometimes we just split up and divide and conquer type deal. Like, all right, you go take this one, and I'm going over here. Because the provost is the senior person behind the president at the institution, and one of us tries to go as much as possible, because we want to show it is important to the institution and what they're doing. And our students are so talented, we just want to go see them perform anyway.
Yeah, so something that you just said, I'm going to go a little off track, but so me and my friends drove 5 hours to go to the South Carolina game, and when we get there, who do I turn around and see but you? And I was so surprised to see that you came all the way to South Carolina, but, I guess that's just part of the job.
Well, that game is particular in many reasons. One, it's not every day we get to play a SEC school, so you try to go to the bigger schools, because that draws a bigger crowd from your alumni base, and you want to be there not only for our students, so it was good to see you, but also to the alums who are there. And we brought the kids. We set out, and it was hot. It was sun
very
was
hot. Yeah.
We had a chance to win that game, and I would have been mad if I wasn't there, and we did win the game.
Yep.
But it's important for me to get out and to see everybody and try to see everyone, and let them know I appreciate them taking the time, their time, not only students' time but alums' time, to come support their team.
Yeah. And we had a lot of alumni there.
We did.
There were so many that I was shocked that were like living in South Carolina or North Carolina that came. I was like, wow.
Yeah, our alumni base is pretty spread out.
Yeah.
It is nice to see, and I hate the Southerners were not able to travel.
Yeah.
It was just cost prohibitive to send the band. Believe me, I heard it. I heard the disappointment that they were not there from many different constituents, alumni, students, faculty, staff. But it's one of those, we had to make a decision in summer, and it was just cost prohibitive to do so.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I will say my friends in the Southerners, though, they were kind of sad, but it's okay.
I know.
That's how it works out.
We'll hopefully plan better so we can go forward with the games that we know we want the Southerners to travel going forward. But when we decided to send the Southerners, when we started checking on buses, and they take 12, 13 buses and 2 tractor trailers and hotel rooms. So in South Carolina, it was interesting because they required a 2-night stay if the Southerners were going, because they require so many rooms. And the 2-night stay was just very cost prohibitive. And there were no hotel rooms. We did find some all the way back in Atlanta, but if they're coming back to Atlanta to stay the night, then let's just come on home.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And then
it really does.
if we're just telling them to come on home, that was just too much on the students. You're talking almost 28 hours of nonstop.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I'm sure I know that you know that the Southerners are going to France in the summer. Are you going to be tagging along to that one?
I will be tagging along. I have not decided if my wife and children are going yet. I know Miss Ogle, who is leading our alumni engagement office, would like for me to decide soon for planning purposes. But I would go because that is an important opportunity for our university and our students, and I'm going over to support. And we look forward to that trip. And we're also having an International House reunion on the back of that trip, so I will get to meet some maybe alums that I have never met before.
Wow, that's so fun. Yeah, I figured you would be coming. It doesn't surprise me at all. But it's so my brother, he's in the Boaz High School band and they're also going. And
I heard.
it's a long trip.
I heard. I'm glad Boaz is getting to make that trek as well. So we will get to see several of our Alabama folks there.
Yes.
And from what I understand, we have around 500 plus that are going. So we have a large contingency going just from the college, and it's important for me to be there as well for those folks.
Yeah. Well, that'll be such a fun trip.
It will. It will. I've never been, so it's just something new.
Yeah, that'll be so fun. So I'm interested, since you are so busy, how do you manage all of your busyness and all of your things that you have to do in your meetings and all of that with your family?
Yeah, and that's one thing that, we talked about, my wife and I, before I accepted the job, the toll it does take on the family. My wife worked here at the university. She was in the School of Nursing. And when I took this job, she had to leave that position. Just because of the nepotism law in the state, she cannot work at the institution. So that was, kind of a drawback. She loves her students and she loved what she did, but it was also a time when COVID was setting in and we had a 1-year-old and the daycares were closing down. We didn't know when they were going to reopen. So what turned into kind of a disappointment for her was a blessing that she could stay home with the kids and manage all that through COVID. But there is a toll. The kids see daddy go to work or get up and talk in front of a group, and it's always something. So they don't get as much time with me as they do with mom. So when I'm home, we try to turn everything off, or like these gadgets we have, and be there with the kids. But a lot of times, unfortunately, these things, even at home, they start ringing or something comes up. So we try to take trips when we can, but since we live here on campus, we do not have a house in town, so there's nowhere to go. So if we are here, we're almost at work, even if you're not at work. So we try to leave town when we can, just so we can be together as a family without the distractions that come along with the job. But it takes its toll. I'm gone a lot, and either traveling or working with speaking to groups or whatever might be on the calendar. And but you did ask, how do you manage it all? Well, it's all about the calendar, and the folks in the office get mad when I start adding to the calendar because then they don't know and it messes up their system. So I try not to get in there and add something to the calendar, but I didn't really know what was going on today till I looked at the calendar this morning in preparation. So it's a full busy day today as well.
Yeah, you have just the sweetest kids. They're so cute and so sweet. And your wife too. You just have the best family. Your wife was my mentor, as you know, from the Leadership House.
Right.
And you just have the best family, truly.
Well, I'm blessed beyond measure. So yes, you should see the kids at home before you really make a full judgment. No, they're good. They're 8 and 5, and it's just they're at that time that there's so much going on, and I want them to look back and say what an opportunity and blessing it was to grow up on a college campus. So when we moved in the house, my son was just one or two, so that's all really he remembers. My daughter, she remembered our former house, and but now that we've been in the house a little more than 3 years, this has become normal now, the new norm. But the things that they have accessible to them, one, they have a big yard.
Yeah.
Whether it's the front, where that in front of Angel Hall, or just the fenced-in area, or just anywhere on campus, they consider their yard. So they get to go. They ride their little scooters and bicycles everywhere on the quad, and most people know that my kids are coming. They love the cafeteria, the number one restaurant. Mostly it's spaghetti and ice cream. So it's not too complicated, but again, it is a blessing, and I hope they look back one day and say what an opportunity they had.
Yeah, maybe your kids will go to JSU. That'd be so fun.
I will ask that they go to JSU, but I will let them make that decision when they're ready.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I am also, if you have any fun stories or things that you can say, what has been the hardest part of being president?
Yeah, there are difficulties. There's so many things you want to accomplish, and sometimes it's lack of resources, which could be in numerous things, whether resources or the enrollment or money, or we need certain faculty to accomplish our goals in this discipline. We need staff to accomplish these goals. So it's not a disappointment. You wish you had more to help what you're trying to accomplish in the goals. Some of the hardest parts of this job has been when we've lost students. They didn't train us on how to call families and say that, we've lost their student. And I don't want to keep count, but unfortunately, I think we've lost 5 since I've been president, and that's not something somebody can teach you how to handle.
Yeah. In
this role, so that's if I had to rank, number one would be losing students and those conversations afterwards. But there are so many exciting things, though, to kind of keep you not struggling with the loss, but to keep your eyes forward on what's happening for everybody else.
Yeah.
Because it'll eat at you if you keep thinking about the loss.
Yeah. I'm sure there is a lot of both good and bad, but one of the things I think that makes you such a good president, we actually talk about this sometimes in our office, because we'll just see you walking by sometimes randomly, is I think that you're very relatable. You'll see you sometimes in the caf eating with students, or when you have the JSU and lights at your house, you're always talking to students, or the cookout after a convocation, just that type of thing. You're very open to the students, and I think that can have a really big impact.
Well, thank you. First and foremost, there's no need for me or this job or any of this without you, the students. So I want to interact with you. I want to let you know that I'm here, and we're here to support you. I was a student. I was a student here, so I understand our students, and I want to make sure that they know me. I'm not sitting in some ivory tower, like the Wizard of Oz or something behind a curtain, just making decisions. No, we're a mid-sized university, but that doesn't mean the president can't be available. And again, I've been at various roles at this institution. I was a student. I was a student leader. So it's very important to me that I be available when I can. I can't be available all the time, so I try to catch students in passing or at the cafeteria or whenever. Most people say, you never get to eat when you sit in the cafeteria. I said, that's fine. So you can look at me. I don't need to eat. You can tell I eat, so it's fine. That's a good place that I can see people, but because getting on the calendar, as you know, is tough.
Yeah. That's so funny. So I'm interested. Let's talk about what's going on campus with all of the construction and everything. There's so many things. So how did all of that come about?
Well, yes, we have a lot going on. Let's really rewind it to the tornado. That really pushed us forward. Now, we did not anticipate going through the tornado. Never want to go through one again, by the way.
Yeah.
We are still in that recovery. But when the tornado took Merrill Hall, for instance, so we had to bring that down and build a new one. And now the new building is open. We're coming on 2 years now. It's been open. Wallace needs to come down. We added an expansion onto Mason Hall. The rec center was being built. The baseball field was being built. So the tornado kind of propelled us forward. In doing so, and then I took over, we experienced enrollment growth, which bring infrastructure challenges to the institution. Let's talk about housing. We know we have a housing crisis, and we're building a new residence hall, the North Village, that will help with that because we were leasing property off campus, the Point. And that's making someone else rich. That's not an asset of the institution. So I want to bring that asset back to the institution. So that's why that's 500 beds. That's a wash. So we're still back to where we were. We have aging facilities. Some of these apartment complexes, we need to address them. In doing so, we need people to move out so we can address them, whether that be tearing it down or remodeling it. That's yet to be determined. Crow Hall is about to undergo some remodeling, and it needs it. We still have 4 residence halls that are on the 2-pipe, 4-pipe system where you're either hot or you're cold. There's no in between. The air's on or the heat's on. That's really it. And those are Crow, Dixon, Fitzpatrick, and Curtis. So we know we've got to work on some of those. So we have a housing strategy, a strategic plan for housing, and we've worked through this. And exciting about the potential for another housing project from our foundation to be started in the next few months behind baseball. We're working through that design now, and if we can do it with the foundation, we'll get it started. And it all comes down to the money issue. But all this, when I started at the Tornado Talk to moving forward, was a transformation period for our institution. So yes, the tornado kind of kick-started that, but with the enrollment growth, we had to make infrastructure adjustments for the campus. The dining hall, it's exceeded its life expectancy. Hopper cafeteria, so it's during the summer, if you've been here, that you have to run through in waves. Orientation, this group comes to eat at this time, this group. We want to get to a place where if we need to eat, everybody can come in to eat. So, yeah. We're more than doubling the size, seating capacity of the main dining hall, and it's going to be a great facility, something that will be attractive for our students and our guests and faculty and staff as well, since that's a benefit. So we're excited about that new dining facility and entering into a partnership with the Sodexo, and they've signed on for a 10-year plus another 10 years, so basically 20 years of in contracts with the institution. They've invested in this new facility, and we're excited where that's going to take us. Then moving over to the Loring and Debbie White football complex, that building, the prior field house was bad, so it needed to come down, and then we're putting something at the same 2-level story facility, just a little bit a bigger square footage, where we have grown into this FBS level of competition, and this is getting a size meeting rooms for more players, since we have more players now, and training facilities for those athletes. So that part's exciting. So those 3 projects are actually funded by the foundation. Those are foundation projects, like the rec center. JSU does not own the recreation center. That is owned by the foundation. They run it. That's a private group that they contract with to run it, and we just pay the foundation yearly for the use of that. Another exciting project is the Randy Owen Center for Performing Arts. We've been working on this for a few years now. We had a design of a brand new facility. When it first came back, the cost-wise, that we were way over budget, and we just said we cannot do this. For everything that we want to accomplish in our music program, we just can't do what we want to do. About the time we were putting that on the shelf after the design, First Baptist Church called and said, "Are you interested in this property, our 7th Street, our 7th Avenue property?" We said, sure, it's boundaries of the institution. We always want to protect the boundaries of the institution and dictate what goes in instead of someone building where something we don't want, maybe. And it was 53,000 square feet of usable space. So now that everything we wanted in that original design that we couldn't afford, now we can do. So there was a few modifications, but not many. The building was good; it was usable. It had the sanctuary was now a small recital hall, but we still needed that big concert hall. So we are just building a 1,000-seat concert hall into the front of the former church property, and it will be the complex as a whole. But I'm really excited about having a place where we can seat 1,000 people to hold recitals and concerts and all that comes along, because right now our students are having to go out and rent facilities like facilities in Anniston or use churches in the community. That's unfortunate. We need that space here on campus, and we will have it soon next year. It's supposed to be finished at the end of 25.
Yeah, I think all of those are so exciting. It's been really interesting as a student just driving by and seeing the progress. Like, the North Village looks crazy. It all just looks so good. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's come along quickly, which they had good weather when they started last fall. Thankfully, we knew rain was coming at some point, which we've had rain this spring. So they're on schedule. All the three, the North Village, the dining facility, and the football complex must be open August 1st for student move-in, for dining, and for football to start. So that's a must. That's got to happen. I don't even want to tell you about Plan B if the residence hall is not ready, because you don't. No, we're not thinking like that. But no, it's they're on schedule, and they have put that building up. It looks great, and I'm ready for everything to be finished and landscaping, because then you get to see the full effects of it. Because now construction fencing just makes it look bad on the bottom level, but we can see the top parts, which it looks fantastic.
Yeah, they all look really good. So I'm curious. Since I've come here, my freshman class, fall of 21, was the biggest class that year. Mm-hmm. And then next year we broke it again. And then, So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I'm curious if your plans for the future is going to be JSU just growing and expanding even more.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, what's your enrollment growth vision? And I said, one more than we had last year. Anything above that. We continue to grow, but at some point we do have a sweet spot that I think we could get to, and just for infrastructure wise, online education has changed a lot of that, so you don't need the classroom settings, and most of that's graduate work, and I think our freshman classes will kind of level out to that normal where your class was, the 1900 students. That seems to look like where we land. But I do think our growth is in graduate programs, possibly dual enrollment, and the adult learner population. That's where we'll see a majority of our growth coming up.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. It's interesting how much JSU has changed just in my short time of being here. But we'll try to wrap it up because, as I have said, Dr. Killingsworth is a very busy man, and we've kind of went on a little longer than we were supposed to, but it's okay.
Too much to talk about.
I know, there is a lot to cover. I'll have to come back for part 2. You definitely should. So, in my last question that I'm asking everyone, what's the number one thing that you would want the people that are listening to take away from this episode?
Oh, that is a good one. I want to say thank you. Thank you for letting me be the president. It's an opportunity, and I don't take that for granted. But I want everyone to hopefully see the vision we have for JSU and be proud of where they're going to school, but also know that I'm here and willing to work with anybody to make this a better institution. Now, there will be speed bumps along the way that we try to work through as a whole, but I'm excited where we're headed. I want you to know that I'm available if you need me, and the cabinet is available. We're here. We're approachable. If anyone has anything they need to bring to us, please do so. But my overall, just please take away that JSU is growing. We're having fun. There's a lot of great things ahead for our institution, and I just want everybody to come along for the ride.
Yeah, I think that's a great message to end on. So thank you so much, Dr. Killingsworth. I think it's been a great episode, and hopefully people can take away a lot from this episode. Thank you,
Chloe.
Yeah, thank you all so much for listening. follow on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify just in case you miss anything. And until next time, this is Chloe Cooley signing off.